It's.com. It's 2 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. I have no idea what time it is down and under, but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Oh, me? Is it me? Is it? Okay. Guess what? I can do that. I'm Dave.
Mickey!
That's the truth. He is. And this is Shiny Side Out, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That is home to fresh ideas. Buy some merchandise or donate any way you like, if you like anything we say. Join us in the chat room. I'll be there in a minute. And talk to us while we're on air. Mickey, this is show number 694.
Ooh, 490 and 600.
Tune into us online on your smart device directly via an app, or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show like I did, you know what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to jump in the archives and download her show and then listen to it afterwards, which I will do, I promise. And always great show, great guest, great shows. Love her work. Thanks very much, Solaris, for warming up the audience. You can access those same archives for free. Jump in there and get our shows, her shows, anyone's shows, and binge. Download a whole bunch. If you're going to go on a long trip, it'd be great to binge them. Just put them one after another, make a playlist. Be cool. Mecky, I'm broadcasting today out of Darkinjung country.
And I, of course, as always, am... Oh, that's not entirely true. Today, in any event, I'm in direct country.
So, Mecky, I'm going to tell you that without this product placement, although we didn't get paid for it, I would be asleep right now. So, woohoo! Yay! There's one story, Mecky, I want to bring up because it happened while I was away. I've been away for the weekend, and I've just returned. 6.5 hour drive today. There's crazy people on the roads, and then there's the normal people on the roads. So as you get towards larger towns, the more crazy the people are. Anyway, that's not the story. This story is there is a ship now off Alaska. Let me see if I can put the middle screen on. There we go. There's a ship off Alaska that has sunk. It had 3,000 cars, 800 EVs. 800 of those 3,000 were EVs. And it caught fire. And there's a picture of it here. You can go to the website. You can find it yourself. I think the ship is called Zodiac Maritime or something like that. I don't know what it's called. Now, it had been adrift since June 3rd because a fire took hold inside the ship, somewhere in the storage of these 3,000 cars. And did you know, Mecky, that they've got a system for fires on board ship? They seal off the compartment and they pump it full of CO2. Conventional vehicles will go out if they're on fire. Conventional vehicles. I mean, internal combustion engine vehicles, all parked so close to each other you can barely get in or out. Now, those vehicles respond really well to that procedure for arresting a fire on a cargo ship carrying 3,000 cars. EVs, on the other hand, don't care what you do, because closing off all the oxygen and replacing the oxygen with whatever you want, carbon dioxide, is just fine. But EVs, they have an electrolyte. Their lithium ion produces oxygen during its breakdown period. So as it's breaking down, it's hit thermal overrun, And as it's breaking down, it actually produces its own oxygen. So it can burn underwater. It's of no use whatsoever to starve an EV fire of oxygen because it just makes its own. And you can tell that by the beautiful white smoke there that's getting lots of oxygen. If it was black smoke, it's unburnt material. Usually starving a fire of oxygen will start that off. Now, sadly, this ship is now 3 kilometers deep from the surface, laying on the bottom. No staff were injured. They were all evacuated, and there are tugs there looking after anything that might float to the surface. However, it's got 25,000 tons of diesel oil to run the ship that hasn't broken free yet. And all of those chemicals which are in the EVs and their batteries aren't naturally found in their current state. And that will be also a pollutant. Yeah? So you've got to think about that. So it sank off Alaska and in the Pacific Ocean. And I'm surprised. Do you know what I'm surprised about, Mickey? I'm going to tell you, though. Guess what? The ABC, Australia's broadcaster, national broadcaster, has nothing, not even a single story about this ship sinking. Not one.
Really?
Yeah, I've gone to the ABC news site and I've typed car transport sinks. Absolutely nothing. Zip, not single story anywhere at all. And look, if I was a guessing person, which, yeah, you know, Australia, we'd bet 2 flies walking on the wall. Which one's going to get
You're a
top
pundit.
first?
Go on. Give us a punt.
I'm going to say, just as a stab in the dark, but without any weapon, I'm going to stab with my finger. Stab in the dark, Mackie. That it goes against the narrative of EVs being perfectly safe. Now,
I'm just looking for the news story myself.
I'm totally looking forward to all the comments at the bottom of what will eventually be a clip of this story. It will. I look forward to all the people who will cling to EVs being fantastic and ignore any evidence and still blame the traditional vehicles have caught fire. It was nothing to do with the EVs, they'll say. Remember,
are you sure that's happening at the moment? I mean,
it just happened. Like it's honestly, you'll find it if you. Oh look, I'll share this with the chat room, Mackie, and you should be able to get access to it that way. So just 1 second while I paste it in.
I can find the story here. I can find a story of a cargo ship carrying 3,000 cars.
Yep.
That has been burning since the beginning of June. I can find that.
That's the very ship, but it's now sunk.
Oh yeah. But it's been on fire since June. It's no longer news. Who cares?
But it just said
but it's been burning for a month, Dave. Come on.
Yeah.
Now,
but I'll tell you that the ABC didn't run a story at all.
Yeah. Now, hang on a second. Do you know how much? If you've got an EV fire, right? Now, this is the number just popped up here. How much water do you think it would take to fresh water? Because salt water actually makes the battery go up in flames. Funnily enough, it's a chemical fire.
Ironically, cold salt water shorts the battery out and prevents thermal overrun. I always get the word wrong.
Oh yeah,
that's what in Holland now they've now using that method to arrest all EV fires, and it does it really quickly.
So it takes a minimum of 20,000 gallons.
That's
it's 80,000 liters of
fresh
water
screw the fresh
to
water.
put out an EV fire.
That Alaskan water.
No,
I'm saying
salt water makes it burn more.
No. Overall,
yes.
No. I'm saying what the Dutch have discovered. If you have an EV fire, you want less, very, very super cold seawater, and you flood the inside the vehicle with it, and it does everything that you've ever wanted it to do, putting the fire out within minutes. It might cause the other batteries also to start in their thermal overrun, but because of the temperature of the water, it actually neutralizes all the power in the car, neutralizes all of the thermal overrun, and voila, it shorts everything out, basically, right? So,
Now,
yeah.
So before we go off the story and in reference to the comments that you expect in the short, which will come, I'd like to say a couple of things about electric vehicles. Number one, they've been around longer than internal combustion, but for various reasons it wasn't developed. Secondly, to produce, and it doesn't matter which electrical vehicle, it's completely irrelevant which one it is, Tesla or BYD is it, I think, or whatever they are, it doesn't matter. It's a lot more polluting, it's a lot more carbon heavy, let's call it. The carbon burden is heavier than a internal combustion car, right? So that's just a production, right? And it will remain that way because it's just the way batteries are made. Now, batteries require a whole bunch of what is called rare earth elements, which is a misnomer because they're the most common elements on the planet. However, China has the monopoly on this, and people never talk about this. China has the monopoly on rare earth extraction because it's a highly toxic process which turns entire landscapes into essentially toxic Avenger swamp. That's what you get. And China can do it because China doesn't have an EPA. Okay? So, it is extremely hazardous. And then, I'm not finished, batteries last, if you're lucky, 7 to 10 years. If you're lucky. And they're the single most expensive thing in your car. It is cheaper to buy a new electric car than get a new battery.
Yeah.
Okay, for your car. Just to be clear. And then, not finished yet, the energy efficiency. So we've got 100 plus years now of producing fairly energy efficient internal combustion engines. And look, we have some amazingly high octane fuel, some amazingly efficient engines. And the ratio of, combusted fuel to power conversion is pretty good. That's why you don't need 1,000 liters of petrol to go 100 kilometers, right? You fill up and you can go for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, right? And that's really good. And if you drive, like a normal person, not like a maniac with good tires, you look after your car, your fuel efficiency is generally good. In fact, very good. So the energy loss ratio is fairly low. The energy loss ratio for an electric car is huge. Why? Well, first of all, I love this. You have to generate the electricity. Now you've got various methods of generating electricity. The most common methods of energy generation or electricity generation that we have today are coal and gas power station. They still are by far the most common, right? And it will remain that way for a long time. Second, you got the green energy is like wind and whatever, but that's not significant enough to even matter.
Renewable.
Solar would be awesome. Yeah, renewable. Solar would be awesome, especially in Australia if the fuel cells were more efficient, etc., but they're not yet. So what you do is, as an EV car owner, you go and plug it in somewhere. Right, you plug in your car so it gets charged. Okay, that's normal. And if you're lucky, you can do it at a shopping center or somewhere where you get it for free. So you, as the EV owner, you're winning. You're actually winning from a cost perspective, 100%, no argument. But the energy you're consuming, the electricity has to be generated. And like I said, it's generated by gas or coal power plants. But then the electricity has to be transported to you. There is a net loss of electricity as it's carried. It's called signal loss, right? It's as it carried across the copper grid, whatever it is. But there's a significant loss of the actual power itself. It doesn't, like, you don't generate a kilowatt here and you get a kilowatt here over here. It doesn't work that way. Not only that, not finished yet. The additional load that electric vehicles put onto the network at the moment is bearable. It's bearable. If we all went electric, and this is just Australia, it's much, much worse in Europe or in America. If we all in Australia, all 20 odd million of us, that drive, We all go electric. All the buses go electric. Everything is electric, 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 electric. In fact, we've now taken gas out of homes, Dave, and we are all making all the homes electric, right? Because that's better. No, it's not, but that's what we're doing. There's certain neighborhoods in Australia which already have gone this way, where you can't get gas to your house anymore.
That's right.
Right. You know what happens? The entire grid collapses because it wasn't built for that kind of load. So what you have to do before you even start thinking about converting everybody to electricity, you have to make sure that the grid that is in place, is actually capable of, number one, generating the electricity that you need. Number two, transporting the electricity that you need. Number three, potentially storing the electricity that you need. And four, finally, delivering the electricity that you need. Okay, and right now, none of those points, none of those four, which I like to call primary points because they have to be in place before we can do it, exist or are sufficient. So good luck to you, electric people. Well done. That's it.
Well, I'm going to reply to a comment in the chat room, and it is, the concern is for lithium batteries, not the EV itself. Volatile battery chemistry in a flimsy, easily penetrated casing designed to terrorize us away from alternatives, says Unforsaken.
So to be clear...
Wait, my response is, you can't have an EV at the moment that doesn't have lithium-ion batteries. Change my mind, pork chop. I'm just saying that out loud. Meki, do you know what? We're in a position right now to be able to have electric cars through their continued research and development very efficiently run if we had a micronuclear device in the car. Be fantastic.
Oh, look, if you have the thorium, what you could conceivably do, but it's a completely different direction, is a thorium reactor.
Micronuclear. I want something the size of a lunchbox that provides all the power
thorium.
for EV, if I had one.
Thorium would do it. The Germans did it back in prior to World War II and World War II. Thorium. That's a surefire bet. Even small tokamaks, they're really making them a lot smaller now than they used to be. But if you can have a tokamak in your car, you'd be sweet. Now, to be clear though, all the points I've just outlined have nothing to do with the type of battery in your car. Completely irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The battery, you're quite right. The lithium-ion battery wasn't a problem just in cars. It was a problem in laptops. It was a problem in phones. Mm-hmm. Overheating was a problem in all devices that had lithium-ion batteries. Yeah. Even if you go to another battery technology, which you can, there are many, many, many potentials here. I mean, you have to think about efficiency as well as cost and so forth. But you could. But nonetheless, all the problems I've just listed, from energy generation to storage, transport, and delivery, still exist. Mm-hmm. We are not equipped right now, and won't be for the next, because it'll take time. 10 to 20 years is my estimation. It'll take that long before we are equipped to go completely electric. Okay? Completely away from fossil fuels, etc., etc. Because again, everybody, the critical thing here, and you know this, Dave. Dave knows this better than Dave is a petrol head. Dave is probably the most knowledgeable guy around the car that I know. It is about the energy generation at the beginning. You have to generate the electricity. That's the key thing. That's the very first thing that you have to worry about when you have an electric car. With an internal combustion car, I mean, if you have a diesel engine, you can put olive oil in there if you want to. Right? That's how versatile an engine that is.
It's called, the kind of fuel that you can run is called SVO, straight vegetable oil. You can run that in a diesel with very little mods, just a bit of an ECU tune. So, you know, yes,
your car will smell like a fish and chip shop.
It does. my friend who was processing fish and chip shop oil for a while in his backyard and producing his SVO. So Batsman's correct there, has posted a Ford, which was one of their first cars. And as Meki said earlier in the intro, the first cars were electric. They just had tons nearly half a ton of lead acid batteries, because we've had that technology
look,
for quite some time.
Yeah, they didn't go very far, and that's why ultimately the petrol distillates like benzene and such, they won the market because it was just easier. It was just easier to do.
Remember
right?
the first cars, because I'm a petrol head. You're right. The first cars didn't have a throttle like we know it today. All you did, it was a constant revving engine because it didn't have a carburetor that mixed it as a proportion of the air throughput. And so you would start the car up and then engage and disengage the clutch to move. So that's all it was. And so luckily we are where we are. There's a 3-cylinder engine at the moment that can do 1,000 horsepower. It's insane how they've been able to revolutionize, like you said, Mackie, revolutionize the cars. I'm just going to put this screen back up. It's our middle screen, and it's highlighting something really important. So there's been 4 major fires in transporting EVs en masse since 2020. So 2020, 2022, 2023, 2025. Mixed cargo was the 2021. That was the Hogue Xiamen. That's Chinese, and I'm mispronouncing it all over the place. Fire destroyed the vessel. It's still in port. Still in port. It had hybrids on it. The Felicity Ace, 2022. Porsche, Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, VW group of cars. And there was hundreds of EVs on board. And that's the one that we all joked about being called the Dutch Oven. It was a Dutch owned ship. And so if you don't know what Dutch Oven is, I'd prepare yourself to Google it and find the answer. A Fremantle Highway in 2023 had approximately 500 EVs. These were BMW, Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen. And there was sadly a staff member killed there and 16 injuries in that one. And this one we've just had, called the Morning Midas. Like new morning. Wonderful morning. 2025, 750 approximately. I said 800 in the opening. The EVs and hybrids. And this is SEAC Motors, Chery with 1 R, Great Wall, BYD and NIO. And it just sank. And there was nothing anyone could do. So one of the things, Becky, that I talk about is what is the cost and what is the process or procedures that need to be in place for this not to happen ever again, and how do we make it safe as the end user, like I've said before, being isolating your garage or making a flame proof, burn through to your dwelling. How do we do this? Now, I'm granted there's probably more than 1 million EVs in service right now, and they're not all catching fire. Now, I completely understand. I get it. That's not the problem. And the few things that we're not seeing is this being highly shown in, it's like the media exposure is minimal. What happened to the floods during those storms, Mickey, in America, the hurricanes, and the houses went under the water and some just burnt to the ground while they were underwater because of the heat from the garage, from the EV that got salt water penetration, blah, 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 right? So what do we do about those, the scooters that cause fires? And I know the guy was incinerated in the lift, holding his battery. So what do we do?
Look,
because this is
nothing.
Really
it's nothing we can do.
We just
look. Well, at this point, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the same. Look, let me give an example from the I guess pharmaceutical world, right? There was a drug back in the 70s called Contagan in German. I think I don't know what it's called here in Australia or in America, but it was given to pregnant women for some kind of, I don't know. It was meant to relieve something. It worked, right? It did relieve maybe a pain or a headache. I can't remember what it was. But the pregnant women took it. What happened though was the children were born with massive birth defects, due to the pill Contagan, and there were some lawsuits. And then, but then, I mean, you probably don't know about this anymore, right? Nobody talks about it anymore now today. No one. Agent Orange, was sprayed over Vietnam.
Yeah.
I know a girl whose father served in Vietnam, and she is suffering from. She doesn't have an iris.
Wow.
In her eye.
Uh-huh.
So no iris. All people, right? And it is traceable exactly or directly, and it's not just it's a causal relationship between Agent Orange and that birth defect. Mm-hmm. Problem is there are enough people in the world that are suffering from that, so she can't start a class action because there aren't enough people. She doesn't meet the threshold. Uh-huh. So my point here, I'm not being facetious or dismissive. Nothing is going to happen, Dave. Nothing. So they burst into flames. Read the instructions. There's the movie. This is actually true in the movie. Because the writer Palchuk, I think it was Palchuk, can't remember. The Fight Club. The main protagonist in the movie, people forget this, is an insurance adjuster, right? And he flies around the country and he has insomnia, but he goes around accidents and he evaluates whether or not there should be an insurance payout, right? And he says there's a very simple formula. And he also has to decide on recalls. If the cost of the recall is greater than the cost of a potential lawsuit or lawsuits, the recall does not happen. Even if there's a certain fault or defect in the car, right? It's there. It's a thing. It's a reality. But you calculate how much the recall would cost, and you say, I don't know, $1 billion. And then you look at the lawsuits that you might get, and the lawsuits will cost you $100 million. Guess what? You go for the lawsuits. Now, this is the cold, cynical calculation of big business. The corporate world works exactly like this. Will people die? Yeah, but, people die every day. They die every day, Dave. Every day.
And if the lawsuits are cheap, they'll go that angle. That's right.
That's it. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, will people get hurt with the the scooters and there is these boards as well? I think you can they have lithium-ion batteries like these sort of skateboardy things. Yep. I think they are. Mm-hmm. Then you've got I guess you've got tricycles, you've got 4-wheels variants, you've got the cars, of course. Drones have lithium-ion batteries. There's a lithium-ion battery in everything. Now the size of it matters. The smaller, of course, the less damage you will do. If your phone's battery catches fire, well, that it's probably not going to kill you, right? It could, but it probably will not. If your car catches fire in your garage, that's your odds are sort of they're going the other way now. It's not so good anymore. So my point is, Dave, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen.
Look, the best case scenario is they develop processes to deal with it and implement those, and we can continue to live happily ever after. If there is anything that ever happens in our lifetimes where, I don't know, I'm going to let the audience guess the topic of this one. We all have to do something. We're kind of coerced or forced into it. And then later on, they find that there was some problems. And then, I don't know, if you're listening to this, because it's definitely going to be a clip. If you know what I'm talking about, then write it below. Because, look, what did they want to do? What was their agenda? Was it simply fear? Did all of the people telling us what to do, did they take that advice? Probably not, as it's turning out. So, you're right, Mekhi. I think this kind of crazy world that we live in, where it's all driven by money, for money's sake, for investment, and to make more money, woo, right? If that's the only thing that is driving our culture at the moment, I think we're in big trouble.
We've been in big trouble for a long time.
So if you go back in the graph to where it started, say, oh boy, yeah, okay. Hello, industrial revolution.
No, but look, I probably further. But if we really, I think we should never have come down from the trees, brother. Stay in the ocean. Stay in the ocean. Go back.
That's funny right there.
I know, but I think I think you're right, though, in the sense that it has been accelerating. And I think because of the acceleration, people are more aware. But it's really funny. It is really funny. As it's accelerating, and I'm talking about our descent into chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ineptitude and inequity, at the same time as it's accelerating, our attention span is diminishing significantly. I'm not talking about baby boomers or Gen Xers necessarily, right? Even, I guess, I guess it's more the millennials, the alphas and such, which were brought up with devices, and you can see the attention span is very short. So news cycles are very short, right? The only reason Watergate was a scandal because it stayed in the news cycle so long, right? I'm not picking on Trump here, okay? I'm not. And in fact, Trump probably had the best week or two of all of his presidencies together just now. He had the best probably couple of weeks ever. And I think these are really good wins, not just for him and in America, but I think for the world there's some really good wins there. But if even half of the stuff that Trump did or his administration did or whatever, even including being a convicted felon, etc., if that had happened in the 70s and 80s, his political career would be dead.
Oh yeah, totally.
It'd be dead. It'd be nothing. There's nothing. I don't care how much money you have, how much influence. Your political career is over.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that world anymore, right? And we're living in a world that's very different.
Watergate was honestly the weakest excuse. At the time, it was terrible, but compared to what happens today, my goodness.
Think about that. Think about Iran-Contra, right?
Yeah,
and General, right. What was his name? Norton, not Norton. North, General North.
General North, yeah, that's right.
No,
that was Oliver North. Yeah. Oliver North and Fawn Hall.
Oliver North.
Were feeding the papers into the shredder.
Yeah, but he had to he took the fall for that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was during Reagan's administration. But the point is, the news cycle was a lot longer, so there was a lot more investigative journalism where people actually investigated.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just comment. So what we went from, I guess, a reporting of the news or what happened. Like, this is what happened, everybody. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Which also then included, some investigative stuff, because the reporting is just what happens day to day. But then you want to go in the background, understand how it all hangs together. You have to do some investigations, right? So those are the two news forms or modes that existed.
Yeah.
The straight up news, here's what happened, without any commentary, really. And then the investigative stuff that goes deeper and finds out scandals, blah, blah, blah. Now, we don't really have that anymore. We don't have just the news reporting, really. I mean, some agencies still do it, but the really successful ones, and this is especially when it comes to podcasting, etc., they're the ones that give you commentary and opinion. Those are the really successful ones. And not only that, these news have to be quick. I mean, nobody's talking about Gaza right now. There are more people dying in Gaza right now than a month ago when Israel started bombing Iran.
It is currently
Ukraine?
the greatest lack of food on the whole planet. That's the place that needs the most food right now, and isn't getting
correct.
It.
The starvation is not just imminent; it is actual.
It's
Ukraine is still happening.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. So the news cycles they're just flip flopping and it's, of course, I mean, a lot of it is due to the Trump administration, who creates a lot of news.
Oh yeah.
And when I say news, I don't really mean news. They create a lot of attention because there's stuff that happens. Mm-hmm. Like when Hegseth was attacking reporters, which I thought was hilarious because guess what? It's their job to ask questions. It's like complaining to your doctor that he's cutting out a tumor out of your head. Oh, you cut out a tumor out of my head. What are you there for? It's my tumor. It's your job. It's my job. Come on. Whereas it's her job to ask questions. I mean, you could argue, are we focusing unfairly on something? Okay, that's fair enough. But you can't blame someone for doing their job. It's their job, right? You don't like the questions? Well, that's too bad for you. Get a thicker skin. You're now a politician, right? So, and then politicians have to take a lot of flack. So there's a lot of content. I don't want to call it news. I'm going to call it content. Mm-hmm. A lot of content is created which carries zero informational value.
That's right.
None.
Mm-hmm.
You're not learning anything new. They're not telling you anything. You're not any wiser. right? And a lot of these things are echo chambers, as Dave keeps pointing out, and I completely agree. Where you go somewhere, you find something, the algorithms, because you're probably on a device, they'll know what you like, and they feed you more of the same garbage. And it doesn't matter what garbage it is that you like. Like I clicked on, what did I click on? I'll tell you. Oh yeah, I was buying a sliding belt. You know, like the sliding belts. I like those. They're really easy to use.
They're good.
And they're really good. I got from the States as well. Hey, Mr. Trump, I bought something from the States. Thank you very much. Okay, am I contributing to your tariff crisis? So, I had a chip from the States. It was a good price. But my point here is that my social media now is just flooded with
belts.
Slide belts, belts everywhere. It's a world of belts I wasn't aware of. So I bought my belts. I need no more belts. Thank you so much. But that's what happens, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. And the more you click on something, the more you go down a rabbit hole, the more this rabbit hole will accommodate you. No, come over here. It's much deeper. Yeah, you're right about everything, Dave. Come on. You know, you wanna. You know, it reminds me of those guys that maybe they still do. I have no idea. But back in the 90s, in the cross, in the cross, there were these guys standing outside these strip joints.
That's right.
And they tried to entice you to come into the strip joint. Hey, come on, boys! There's girls in here. You're gonna love it. Come on, it's a great night. That's a bit, you know what this is. It's a little bit of prostitution, I think.
That's like, okay. You get a free drink. There's a free drink, right? And after you had which was I cannot water it down anymore, Captain. Then the drinks were like $10 each after that. So you paid for the drink you had, which I don't know. It's just flavor.
Use the cheap water. What?
Don't even really. So in our news this week, having a lot of focus on the news, I watched a whole 15 minutes of primetime news based purely on Albo not getting seat time with Trump. It wasn't the Trump story, it was our Prime Minister's story where he didn't get time. Then they did a live cross to just a reporter saying the same words, and then between the two, they repeated the same story like 4 times. That he didn't get any time, that he was planning to get some more time with, are you going to get some more? Yes, I'm going to get some more. But it was all hearsay. Because the Prime Minister, then they ran a grab of someone else interviewing the Prime Minister, answering those questions. It was completely pointless. What's even the point? They could have said, Prime Minister missed out this week. He's hoping for next week. Next story. Done. That's 100%. It. That's it. Yeah. But, Becky, you know what? These massive, these mops, right? The bombs and people going immediately to the first release of information and then not waiting for anything, nothing verified. I learned a whole bunch about this week, and that's why you might see a news outlet waiting 3 days to get all of the facts straight and then run a straight story on something, rather than the moment something breaks, we're going to launch it. Doesn't matter what the flack is. And even if we're wrong, we won't even do a retraction. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. And we know it happens. Yeah. I mean, it always happens. In the paper, like 10 pages in, there used to be a little column. And the newspaper could say, 5 days ago we made a mistake. The word should have said this. That's it. If they issue a retraction, that's good reporting. But they're not really doing that anymore, and it annoys me.
The ABC does some of it on a Sunday.
That's right.
I haven't seen terribly many other. Yeah, I haven't seen terribly many other retractions come through. I mean, they do happen, because if they don't, and the person that doesn't like what you said, now has the option to sue you, right? And nobody wants to get sued. Fair enough.
That's right.
But it is true. It is true. The news landscape, and I don't want to call it news anymore. I mean, it started changing in the 90s from really news, because when I grew up in the 70s, I was born in the late 60s, but I became aware of the news in the 70s, watching it, in Germany. It changed from the news to infotainment in the 90s somewhere, with cable channels, etc. Right? And we want viewers. We want, this is no longer a public service. We don't want to inform you. right? We want to entertain you. We want to get your money, and ideally, we want to tell you what to. Excuse me. We want to tell you what to think,
and we want to sell advertising space during the news.
100%, 100%. I mean, and that's actually that's probably the most despicable thing. But you're correct. That's, and in fact, when Rod Serling pitched his Twilight Zone, he did so with product placement in mind, and that's how he sold.
Really?
But did you know that it was? The original. There's the original clip of when he pitched it. Mm-hmm. He says, that's going to be product placement. He was smoking and whatever. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Lucille Ball that gave both him and Star Trek a go. Like she was the strongest advocate for both Twilight Zone. I know for a fact she did it. Yeah, I know for a fact she did it for Star Trek, and I think she did it for the Twilight Zone. So we can thank Lucille Ball, who was clearly way ahead of her time in many ways, that she would even consider giving those guys a go. I thought that's just brilliant. But yeah, so that's where we are, my friend.
Her show was a cornerstone in television.
In
history, doing
completely
live to air shows where mayhem ensued.
It was the I guess the archetypal sitcom, right? It was most other sitcoms that came after were cut from her cloth. There were sort of sitcom kind of things before that, but what she brought to it was some real life issues, such as, her husband was a Latino American, right? In the show. And there's some things. She had some real life things that she discussed, which later sitcoms would pick up on. So they weren't just sitcoms like Roseanne, for example, or Frasier, or even Seinfeld, where you had some. It was funny, but there were some serious issues being dealt with, right? Whereas I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched, there was nothing really of any serious social consequence ever discussed. And I love those shows. Don't get me wrong.
Me too.
But it was just entertainment, pure and simple, no commentary, nothing, right? But we have lost that. I think we've lost quite a lot of that. Which is a shame. I really wish we could go back to those simpler times when the news outlets and broadcast stations and newspapers weren't owned by 5 corporations, but by hundreds and even thousands of different entities, and you could really find different viewpoints. If you bought a paper, or listened to a radio station, who they supported, and you also knew if they didn't support anyone, if there was straight down the line news, you knew that. These days it's become a lot more nebulous, Dave.
Yeah, that's indeed probably the most poignant thing that we ever talk about is, I like to call it the Reuters tear-off. So we've seen the montages of all of the hosts saying the identical script, and it's because they normally work for the same outlet, and they have a Reuters like let's call it, for intents and purposes, a directive to say a certain script. But because America is so large and they all have a local station, those local station people will do a live-to-air read of something, and then that's why that it just makes sense to have the screen filled with thousands of hosts saying the same script. It's frightening, though, that there isn't a local news so worded that they went, oh, you know what? We're not running that. But because they wouldn't have any money. That is, or they're getting paid to say the words they're told to say. That's it. And so, look, if I was an anchor, not that I would ever get the job, but if I was an anchor and I was paid to say something, I would have already understood the terms of my contract, and I would read the piece verbatim. I wouldn't sugarcoat it. But, it's happening more and more. I think the independent style of the content creators that we're seeing today that aren't, regulated news outlets, who are touching on topics that they're too they're obviously advised not to talk about, or too afraid, as if they're smaller independent news outlets, because of the repercussions. I think the bravery, if you want to call it that, of the smaller news outlets or content creators who will examine something, talk to experts, get some really good information heading the public's way. I think that's really important. If the governments aren't liking the independent research and information getting out, why are they in charge of the narrative? That's the question I have. Why? Aren't we all just in a big soup, and whoever holds up a placard is going to get read? Do you know what I mean? If there's some research behind it, rather than whatever the government wants. And we're seeing more and more of this. I think there was 20 people that were arrested the other day for having a viewpoint that went against the narrative. I don't want...
That's incredible.
I know. And
That's incredible. That's incredible.
There used to be avenues. We used to live in a society where you could research something and bring it to the attention of the people, and there you go. You're not, for the most part, you're not being outwardly against anything except for the exposure of the information.
Yes.
That's the nice way of putting it.
No, you're right. It's a creeping danger. It's a creeping danger that is slowly and insidiously burying its way into our culture, where it becomes acceptable. Again, I give you the example of if a police car was pulling over another car, and you could see that the police started maybe even beating up on the person. Chances are you wouldn't intervene because you think the police is doing the right thing, right? Now it's the same with the news. You stop questioning the news. You stop questioning what you're being told or what they show you, and we must remember, this is a very, very, very important thing to remember. You only see what someone wants you to see. Mm-hmm. Okay, now if you've got the opportunity to go to many different someones and look at whatever they want to show you, that's great, right? That's awesome. You can go ahead and look at different outlets, maybe even different languages, different countries. That if you can do that, then you've got a chance of understanding, a bit more of the broader picture, right? Of course, ideally, you travel a lot yourself. You speak to many different people. You participate in life very deeply, so you understand what other people are thinking. So these are all things that can assure that you are informed. They're hard. It's not easy. And maybe you come here because Dave and I do some of that heavy lifting for you, right? Now, we don't really have an agenda. I've got one agenda. Well, maybe two, but one main one. And my agenda is that the society that we have is no longer functioning. We can no longer afford billionaires. That's my biggest thing. We can no longer afford billionaires. We have to do something about it, right? And we have to come up with something else, excuse me, that is not billionaires. Anything, right? We need to be able to afford everyone a decent life. And we have enough to go around. And while capitalism is dead, we can still live in a capitalist or pseudo-capitalist society if that's what you desire. We just have to set an upper limit, right? We have to set a clip level. I think that's reasonable. Okay? I think it's reasonable to have a clip level of, let me say 100 million, right? That's what we said. So if you come here to find out what's going on, we will give you the straight dope, as they used to say in the olden days. As we see it, as best as we can understand it, we have really no agenda. And like I said, we don't love or hate Trump. We don't love or hate Biden. Well, to be honest with you, I think Biden was a huge mistake. That was just ridiculous. I'm sorry. Or any other politicians in the world. I mean, people always has the government it deserves. That's a very old saying. Now, you can make of this what you will, but what it fundamentally means is if you're living under a regime that you don't like, then do something about it, is what it means. Right? We know that the French didn't like the regime they lived under. Mm-hmm. That came to a head in 1789. We know the American colonies didn't like the regime they lived under. That came to a head in 1776. Right? And we know that the Russians didn't like the regime they lived under. and that came to a head, I guess, really in anger in 1914, 1915 in Russia. So I think the people always have the government they deserve, right? And you make of that what you will. All right, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, I have two stories here, Meki, that comes from New Zealand, believe it or not, and one of them says 12,000 Brits arrested per year over social media posts. And this was posted in 2024.
12,000?
12,000, yeah.
Wow.
It's
I mean, I'm sorry, but
it seems a little high. Seems a little high. And
oh, this water's a little hot, says he as he plunges his hands into boiling oil.
It's happening again. All right, and the other story from the same paper, I just noticed it down the side here, and I'll put the links beneath this video so you can have a look for yourself. It says, conspiracy theory. Ardern blames Russian disinformation for anti-jab mandate parliament protest. That's it.
Wow.
And so this was the 2022 anti-mandate protests. And this was from June 18, 2025. And the other story was April 7th, 2025. So they're recent. Look, it's incredibly concerning, Meki, that we're going the direction that we're going in. Where social media, the thing that they wanted it all to use, they wanted everyone to use social media. The internet, as it used to be before social media, is almost gone.
Yeah.
When have you looked something up and done research outside of what social media presents you? It's shrinking. There's almost no use of it. And no one has time because they're getting all their endorphins from scrolling on any of the social media platforms. And so when you find stories like these, no one's there to read them. It's the tree in the forest falling. You know, in a quantum world, everybody knew it fell.
That's right. But look, you're right, and that's really a massive. I mean, obviously, you can imagine Dave and I don't really fall into that particular category, but and that's because we I don't know, we're just different and strange, and that's a good thing. And if you feel you're different and strange, be different and strange. Be different, be strange. The less people think you are normal, the more likely it is that you actually are on the right path. The less people see, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Mark Twain, but I could be wrong. I don't want to.
He said so many good things.
He did, but look, I'll look it up in the break and I'll tell you. But there's this quote that goes, "Whenever I find myself in agreement with the majority, I know it's time to rethink my position." Okay, so please, please, live by that. Okay,
I'm never watching Titanic for that reason.
Because it was recommended by too many people.
Too many people. I said I'm out. Done.
That's it. No, not for me. Oh, that's the same reason I shy away from recommended books. It's funny, right? If someone could say, "Oh, this is the best book I've ever read. I love this book," da da da, and I go, "Oh, now I can't read it."
Now you have to take it out of your pile and put it somewhere else. Gift it to someone.
Oh, that's funny. Movies, though, I'm a bit more forgiving.
Yeah, I like to go there without listening to anything and then determining for myself whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
But when too many people hype it up too much, it really... I just can't deal with it. I really can't. I've got to turn away. So, Meki, we've come to the end of the first hour. It has flown by for me. And if you see any of our content anywhere, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment. It helps us with the algorithm and gets us presented to more and more people. So please do that. It will help. I think we hit 55,000 views in the last 28 days or something crazy. So let's keep that momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep
100%,
it
my
going and see what we can do. The music's starting now. And look, we're going to end this stream. There's a new stream for the next hour. And the next hour, Meki, is Human-Animal Hybrids Part 5. So stay tuned for that. It's only a short break. We'll see you afterwards.
Listen to Revolution Radio at Freedom.